Hello, welcome to the Sharp Neck Limited. And tonight we're going to be going over the Reading Camelback yard goat I have here, the 060 yard goat. We have, this is going to be doing a lot of pushing and pulling of smaller consists of cars on the sidings, sort of putting things together for the bigger engines on my model railroad here. This is a nice little model by Mantua, and there's a lot of excellent little details on here. Has a die-cast chassis right here, die-cast cylinders, die-cast wheels with nickel rims, metal handrails here, and back here. Three-piece brass bell, which is very pretty. It's a little hard to see, and you have to come by in person to see it. Heavy-duty motor, front and rear diode lighting. It's DCC ready. We'll get to that in a minute. It's not unbelievably DCC friendly, but I got it working pretty nice after a little bit of retooling. Metal valve gear. Excellent low speed operation and pulling power. Here I'm going to demonstrate that right now. I mean, that's pretty good for Mantua. Mantua is sort of an older model, is discontinued, and they've sort of these are sort of what's called Mantua Classics. I think it's issued now as through Model Power, which is another company. But these are some of the, as they say, classics of Mantua's line, and it really is I really enjoy it. First of all, because it's an unusual locomotive and the detailing is very nice. And I had to do a couple things to it to get it to run right. I don't know if you can see it right here. There's a little piece of paper where I had to shimmy up the motor away from the chassis. What I'm hearing is that typically with Mantua, that little drive shaft right there, which is plainly visible if you really look at it closely, but if you don't look at it, it's hard to see. It kind of jams up too closely out of the factory, so you have to take some screws that are underneath, and you have to loosen those up and then shimmy it up, and then once you do that, it actually runs pretty good. Before, out of the box, it was kind of choppy, and I was disappointed, but after looking on the forums, I was able to get it running pretty good. Let me just get it going again. See, for a Mantua and for you know, an 060, which is also it's hard to get a model that runs that well, you know, mainly because, you know, on the electric contacts, you know, you're pretty much limited to what you see here. And it's not like one of the larger locomotives where you have a lot of contacts, so if there's one slip up along here, you know, it just gives out. But this one has a lot of good contact. This one, the tender actually does not power the rest of this. I could power that up by adding a few more metal strips and making the connection to here. I haven't gotten to doing that yet. And that's a nice slow speed creep, and it does a pretty good job. Pulls whatever I give it. Very, very I would it's a very stubborn little thing. It just keeps going. A word on the history of this type of locomotive. I mean, you're probably used to seeing something that looks, with a cab in the back. These were generated or formulated, or they're designed to run an anthracite region. Let me just read from Westcott here. The cab set astride the boiler was a common feature on the roads of the anthracite region because of the extremely wide firebox. These engines were called Mother Hubbards or Camelbacks. These Reading Class 8 B8As were built by Baldwin when it was officially Burnham Williams in 1907. Now, the reason that you have the cab here is because of the wide firebox. If you put the cab where it's normally where you normally think of it being like back here, the engineer could not see past the firebox. It was just too wide. So what they ended up doing is they just plopped the cabin right on top of there. Problem with that, in terms of in practice, was that if anything broke down here, it just shot up through this little thin piece of metal and injured the engineer. Furthermore, the tender, this is where they keep the coal, and the coal would be shoveled into the firebox like this, which would give it the fuel. This is the anthracite coal right here. Well, that poor fireman is sitting back here, and he's not under any, he's completely exposed to the elements. So in terms of a design for people, this thing was wasn't that people friendly. A lot of people got injured using this type of locomotive, but it looks great. It's really, I mean, they have one at Strasbourg, which is kind of fun. Strasbourg Railroad has one like this, and it's I think they're restoring it now. But when I saw it at Strasbourg when I was a kid, I thought, this was the locomotive, like that much of it. So when it has a comically small look, and I always remembered it because I thought this is the teeny locomotive. Well, I didn't know that the rest of this was part of the locomotive. Well, a word about the Mantua in terms of this. Those who are very keen eyes probably noticed that this tender is riding up just a little bit. That little gap you see right there shouldn't be there. Why is it doing that? Well, they say this is a DCC ready locomotive, and that's fine, but this one requires a 9-pin DCC encoder. Now, I don't know a lot about it. All I know is every time I went to a hobby shop and said, me a 9-pin DCC encoder, they all looked at me like I was from Neptune. And then I showed them the instructions, and they looked at those like they were from Neptune and said, I only know of one of them that makes a 9-pin like this, blah, blah, blah. They said it was really hard to find. Finally found one. I get it after waiting a month. I get it home, I pick up the tender, which is where you put the DCC card, and wouldn't you know it, it doesn't fit. So this is as far as I can get the tender down. So nobody ever notices, I mean, except for me, but that's one little flaw that from what I can tell, you cannot put a proper DCC encoder in there without having a little bit of problem there. So anyway, one more time, here it is. There it goes. See you later.